Your Honor, we have no other witnesses. We are resting the defense case.
All right, thank you. Let me inquire of the state if there will be a case in rebuttal.
Your Honor, the state does have one witness to call in rebuttal.
All right, please call your witness.
State recalls Robert Hinzman.
You may proceed, Mr. Truman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Hinzman, handy what's been, at this point, it's part of State's Exhibit 3. Ask you to review that as well as the second page, which is also an abstract from...
You might request that we get copies so we can look at them while they're being testified to. If we could simply copy them very quickly.
Does the state have copies available?
We do not. I mean, we can make them, but...
Okay. I'll ask Ms. Brown Bailey or the deputy to make the copies real quick. How many do we need?
He's the only one that wants one, I guess.
One.
Can ask some preliminary questions.
Okay, go ahead.
You previously testified that you and Tim Bledsoe, both retired troopers, were the lead investigators in the two cases, correct?
That's correct.
As part of your investigation, did you interview the defendant's children?
No, we did not.
Why not?
At the time of the investigation, and more specifically between March and June, March is when we began the investigation. June is when we executed a search warrant on the defendant's residence. During that period, we were collecting information from third-party records. We were collecting information from witnesses, from financial institutions. And there was nothing in that 3-month period to indicate that there would be a need to speak to the children. The second and most important thing was their age. They were very young at the time. One was 10 or 11 and one was 13. And we were looking at the business of the Cochrans. We were looking at the Cochrans individually. So there was no indication or any reason to speak to the children. And then the final reason we wouldn't speak to the children is we've been long taught in law enforcement and investigations that you don't speak to children under the age of 18. And there's some tolerance there with 16, 17, 18-year-olds, but you don't speak to anyone that young without a parent's permission or without an attorney present. So we would not, by normal operating procedures, have spoken to the children.
You were in the courtroom when the two children testified on behalf of the defendant, correct?
I was.
And in their testimony, they indicated to you who actually ran the company businesses.
I did hear that testimony, yes.
And essentially, what were the children saying as to who was controlling the Cochran's businesses?
The children put a lot of responsibility or...
I'm going to object to this. The jury heard the evidence. The jury can draw whatever conclusions from the children's testimony. This witness does not need to editorialize on that.
Sustained.
You're being recalled as a witness for the purpose of rebutting the testimony provided by the children. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Hand you an abstract from what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 3. Ask you to look at that as well as a second page, also an abstract of what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 3. Recognize those documents?
I do.
What are they?
These are text message communications between the defendant, Ms. Cochran, and Stephanie Hamilton.
Have those back, please. At 10:15, the defendant sends a text to Stephanie Hamilton. Can you put that in some kind of context as what's going on there?
Natalie Cochran is offering Stephanie Hamilton an opportunity to invest in a government contract dealing with medical equipment.
The document speaks for itself. Again, we don't need any editorialization as to what these documents are, what they speak of.
Could the state respond to that?
Sure.
That's not accurate. Those are statements taken and they don't say anything about a contract. It says there are two today. Two what? I think it's fair to put that in context with the witness's investigation and what he found that meant.
And for that matter, these documents do not indicate any interlocutor of Natalie Cochran. We have no idea who this is.
Well, I think we do need some explanation from the witness, and so I'll allow it. I'll overrule the objection. You may proceed, Mr. Truman.
Thank you.
Ms. Cochran is offering an opportunity to invest in 2 contracts or to consult on these contracts. They deal with surgical masks and betadine swabs, medical equipment. Ms. Hamilton was in the medical field.
Here's another text, and this is also a download from the defendant's phone, correct?
Yes,
And
from Ms. Hamilton's phone.
correct. And this is April 26th of 2019.
Yes.
And the defendant responds, that means next Friday is payday.
I'm going to object to this, Your Honor. This is way past Michael Cochran's death. This document is irrelevant.
What is the date on this?
The date,
Yes.
April 26th. And the purpose of this testimony is to show that the defendant continued to run the business as she had before.
I'll allow it. Overruled.
Thank you. Sean, I next hand you an abstract from State's Exhibit 2. Could you identify that?
Yes.
What is it?
This is a text message between Natalie Cochran and Chris Davis on February the 6th, 2019.
Judge, I think we really need to approach the bench at this point.
All right. Continue, Mr. Truman.
Thank you, Your Honor. February 6, 2019, at 9:27. That's a text from the defendant to whom?
Chris Davis.
We'll have these marked collectively, but if you could take a review of those documents. And if I could have this marked as States 34, please. All right. States 37, marked for identification. Can you tell us what that is?
These are text messages between Natalie Cochran and Wendy Poteet.
Who's Wendy Poteet?
Wendy Poteet would be the sister of Natalie Cochran.
And how did you acquire those documents?
These documents, they're cell phone text message documents. These were recovered from Natalie Cochran's cell phone subsequent to the search warrant executed at her residence. The cell phone is given to a forensic examiner and they do an electronic download of all the data on the cell phone. And these are pages from that extract.
And that was from a search warrant?
Yes, sir.
We don't necessarily have to go through all of these. Let's just put a few up here to show where this is going. Once again, these are text messages between the defendant and her sister,
Yes.
and she's offering a contract.
Wendy Poteet was already a investor victim of the contracts, and she is.
We object to the characterization investing victim. We don't know anything about Ms. Poteet.
All right, that's a fair objection if you'll refrain from speaking of her as a victim, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Continue.
Wendy Poteet was an investor, and this is reference to a contract that she is owed money on. And Ms. Cochran is advising her that she's going to be paid by a certified check.
Once again,
This is a text message.
Your Honor, can we please have this identified? Which document?
number 5.
Text message, again, between Natalie Cochran and Wendy Poteet, where Natalie is offering additional contracts for Wendy to invest in on February 18th of 2019.
Now, collectively, is there a pattern emerging here in terms of the defendant's conduct of the business?
Object to this question, that's argumentative.
Or we could just go through slide by slide.
Overruled. Continue.
Is there?
These contracts were dated after the date that Michael Cochran collapsed on February 6th. So this is a continuation of these illegal business operations, the investment, the Ponzi scheme that we'd spoken about. This is a continuation of those after Michael's not available.
Handy what's been marked for identification is States 38, please. You recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. For the,
Yes. Yeah. 22, 23, 10, 13, 14, 16, 19, 20, 21,
okay,
22,
so now we're looking at 10.
collectively at the moment. But
Okay, all right.
they're not all available, but exhibits 10 through 23, or tabs 10 through 23. What is that?
These are all text messages specifically between Natalie Cochran and Michael Cochran, ranging from August of 2018 to February 5th of 2019.
5th or 6th?
These end on the 5th, February 5th of 2019.
Who's that to and from?
This text message block is Natalie Cochran's text message that she has sent to Michael Cochran.
Do those numbers mean anything to you?
These are dollar amounts that she has told Michael are owed to them and their business for contract, government contracts that they have sold or obtained, been awarded would be the correct term. She's
You done with that one?
you want me to finish, Mr. Truman?
Please. Yes.
The date of this text was on August 27th, and with these dollar amounts, she's provided other dates in which these dollar amounts will be posting. The very first entry, 3.45 million, should post tonight at midnight. That would be on August 27th. And then there's timestamps applied to the other amounts in those texts.
And this one from October 25th of 18.
This is a text from Natalie Cochran to Michael Cochran where she's talking about getting off the phone with government entities, and that the audit, which was presented as a reason why none of the contracts could be paid out, she is telling him at this time that the audit is complete. There's some additional administrative stuff that needs to take place, and that all monies from all those contracts that he believed were being awarded and due will be available by Monday, October 29th.
You heard young Mr. Cochran testify about a .50 caliber contract, did you not?
I did.
This is again a text. You recognize the phone number as to where that text is coming from?
Yes, that's Natalie Cochran's phone number.
And is that the only .50 caliber order in your investigation that you saw, or were there others?
That is the only one. This is a reference to a text again to Michael about that .50 caliber government contract order, where she is telling Michael that they, being whatever entity the contract was fulfilled with, want to double that .50 caliber order, and it would cost them $244 million and yield a return of $378 million.
This one from January 30th, 2019. Who is that one from at 334?
Again, this text is from Natalie Cochran to Michael Cochran. In this text, this is following the government shutdown, to put it in context. And she is telling Michael that they have all the money being resent tomorrow, and they should be available to them by Monday at the latest. And then the feds will begin sending money on Monday. And this was dated January 30th of 2019. February 1st was the date that the investors had been told that the monies would be released post-government shutdown.
There's one from the 31st.
This is, again, a text from Natalie Cochran to Michael Cochran where she is telling him that she is on the phone with the Bank of America. And this is in reference to the monies that were supposedly inbound. And that's why she's talking with Bank of America.
I'm going to object on lack of personal knowledge.
All right, that's fair.
Again, as part of your investigation, did you download records indicating when the defendant was using her cell phone to make phone calls?
Yes.
Did you compare the text messagings with the downloads to see if in fact she was on the bank phone with the bank?
There were instances where she claimed to be on the phone and she wasn't, and there were instances where
Judge, I'm going to object. This is a broad.
I'll withdraw that.
Okay.
What's DFAS?
DFAS is the Defense Finance Accounting Service. It's a federal government entity that deals with defense finance.
And 2 days before Michael collapsed, there's a reference to the organization you just mentioned. Who's Betsy?
Betsy was earlier referenced in testimony to Betsy Britland. Betsy was a character created by Natalie Cochran to be a government employee that she communicated with regarding government contracts on the regular. She would ask, or when asked about contracts, she had told Michael that her point of contact was Betsy Britland with DFAS or the U.S. Treasury.
That's not in the exhibit. The witness is testifying from some other unidentified documents. I object to that.
Overruled.
So Betsy Britland, who did not exist, this is a reference to Natalie claiming to have spoken with Betsy regarding the contracts and the whereabouts of the award money that should be coming to the contracts. And this text is, again, to Michael Cochran.
And on 2/4 at 3:01, 2/4/19 at 3:01.
Again, this again is a text message from Natalie Cochran to Michael Cochran, assuring him that all 4 wire transfers and money deposits were en route and that they potentially could show up that day on February the 4th. And she references 4.8 regarding millions of dollars that should arrive in the morning and 23.8 million tomorrow, the next day at some time.
From your review of the text messages between the defendant and Michael Cochran, the defendant and Wendy Poteet, the defendant and the Davises, the defendant and Stephanie Hamilton, was there a pattern emerging there?
Yes, there was.
It was always deception to all of those parties, was it not?
Now the prosecutor is testifying. I object.
Fair point.
Sustained.
The text messages that we've reviewed in summary fashion, did they indicate a pattern to you?
They did.
What is that pattern?
That Michael Cochran was being told the exact same information that the investors were being told. Those who were relying on money to be paid back to them, the information that was given to them is the exact information that was being given to Michael Cochran.
And that all derived from the defendant, correct?
Yes.
Could I have just a moment, please?
Sure.
There was also reference in the defense case to Michael utilizing the defendant's phone and sending messages as a guise that it was her sending them. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oops, I need another marker. And what's been marked for identification is States 39. ask you if you could identify that.
You want me to identify it?
What,
Yes. This is a photograph of a text message from the cell phone of Matt McCormick. It's a text message stream between Matt McCormick and Michael Cochran.
what time is the text message from Michael Cochran?
There are two dates here. Do you want?
The second one.
On February 6th at 1:39 p.m., there is a text message that was sent from.
I'm going to object to this. This has nothing to do with my client's statement. This is hearsay.
We don't think so.
This is a statement between two third parties. One is dead, the other one is a third party.
Care to respond, Mr. Truman?
Yes, sir. This is a text from Michael Cochran's phone when all the evidence says Michael Cochran was totally unconscious and lying on a couch.
I'll allow it. Overruled. Go ahead.
This is a text message at 1:39 p.m. from Michael Cochran's phone to Matt McCormick's phone, in which he is telling Mr. McCormick that he would be available to see him in a few days, reference a firearms transaction.
From your investigation and from all the evidence to date, is there any possible way that Michael Cochran could have sent that text?
No, not at 1:39 p.m.
Why not?
We have a time-stamped photograph taken by Natalie Cochran at approximately 12:30 of Michael Cochran laying on the floor at their residence. And then soon after, we have witness testimony of individuals at their house with him in his unresponsive state during that time frame.
Your Honor, at this point, the state moves into evidence. I can't remember the numbers. Is it 37, 8, and 9?
37, 38, and 39.
Please.
And I'll preserve the defense objections previously made. Are there further objections that you wish to place on the record?
Now, Your Honor, to all of which I do object.
All right. I'm going to admit states exhibits 37, 38, and 39 over the defense objections.
Your Honor, the state has no further questions.
All right. Cross-examination, Mr. Victor.
Mr. Hinzman, the purpose of your testimony here today is to demonstrate that Michael Cochran, and this is an old story, was duped by my client, Natalie Cochran, and didn't know anything about these contracts, right?
Yes.
No. And for that matter, the other message there that you are telling the jury about is that Natalie Cochran was involved in the illicit business of contracts. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Would you agree with me, sir, that throughout this trial, as you were sitting here, we have conceded that Natalie Cochran was a bad girl and she was dealing in those federal contracts? Did we concede it or not?
Did you concede to it? I don't know who we is.
Listen carefully. Is it true that Natalie Cochran has conceded that she was involved in the fraudulent scheme?
Yes, she did.
So that shouldn't be any surprise for you when you look at all these documents. That she is involved in these transactions.
The purpose of my testimony was to illustrate that Michael Cochran was not involved in the illicit transactions.
Michael Cochran wasn't involved in it. All right. I'm going to ask you. If I can do this. Looking at one of the examples. I do not recall which number it was. I think it's somewhere around 5 or 6. But you testified about this document, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
That document was telling you that on August the 30th, and I presume 2018, $1.2 million was going to be posted, right? See it there?
On August 30th, yes.
Yeah. Posted in the account of Mr. and Mrs. Cochran, right?
Yes.
Then on September the 4th, I'm sorry, the 3rd, $724,000 was going to be posted. May not be the 3rd because it's gonna be a holiday, but it was gonna be posted in the Cochran's account, right?
Yes.
And then $2.56 million next Friday was going to be posted in their account, right?
Yes.
Well, comes August 28th, no money in the account, right?
Correct.
Comes August 29th, no money in the account.
Correct.
Comes the end of September, no money in the account, right? Right?
Yes.
Yes. Well, come about that $2.6 million next Friday, so that's probably sometime, I don't know, sometime at the beginning of September, right? No $2.6 million coming.
Correct.
And Mr. Cochran doesn't know that? He is waiting for about $4 million, right? Right?
The last date put out on these is December, so between August 27th and December, it was over $300 million that he was
I
told
asked
was
you
due.
about these numbers. 300,000, $1.2 million, $724,000, $2.6 million. There's nothing about December there, is there?
December 21st on the next one down. 12/21, $131 million on 12/21.
I didn't ask you about that, sir. I asked you about the top, the
Okay,
exhibit. There's about $4 million coming to Michael Cochran, to his account, right?
to the business. Yes,
To the business where Michael Cochran is a minority owner, right?
no,
No? To the business where he has a joint account, right? Yes, sir? Yes or no?
yes,
Yes. $4 million coming to my account, and I don't know anything about it?
that is correct. Well,
And-
he knows what's been told to him here
Okay.
about the
Well,
$4 million.
Fine. Then let me ask you this. We are now at the beginning of October. That $4 million didn't materialize itself. He is not asking questions, is he?
He absolutely is. The defendant had
is?
produced an audit
Show me in
ruse,
any of these documents, sir.
an audit ruse.
Show me any of these documents, these exhibits, when he is asking any questions about where is that $4 million?
We
Where
have,
is that $4 million? Show me any of these documents here. Were admitted into the evidence. Not some stuff about we did our investigation. Show me in any of these documents.
if you'll hand the documents back, I'll review them to see if I can find that.
We can review them all you want.
But I know that throughout the text messages that were reviewed, 1,224 pages of text messages were
I don't care about that.
numerous times that Mr. Cochran
Show the
asked
jury.
where the
Mr.
money
Hinzman,
was.
Mr. Hinzman, there's no question pending. I'm asking you to show this jury from these documents that Michael doesn't know, that Michael somehow is not surprised that the $4 million that was supposed to come to him at the beginning of September is not there. Show me.
He had been
Show
told
the
it
jury.
wasn't coming because of an
No,
audit.
No, sir. You look at these documents, show me if there is anything in these documents that indicate that Michael Cochran is or is not surprised by not getting $4 million.
Your Honor, do you want me to take the time to review all these documents? And
Well, if you can. Go ahead, Mr. Hunter.
I'll move quickly.
All right.
And I'm looking specifically for where is that $4 million that was supposed to come in September?
Would you restate your question?
Well, show me in any of these documents when Michael Cochran is asking Natalie, or anybody for that matter, where is that $4 million or, well, 300,000, 3.4, well, there's more than that. 300,000, $1.2 million, $724,000, and $2.56 million. Where is it? It was supposed to be deposited. Now it's September, it's October, it's November. Where on earth is that money? Show me any of these documents indicating his inquiry about that.
Okay, on page 19, he's referencing the 1.6 million, having to wait for that. On
Okay.
page 20, when she says she's on the phone with Bank of America, he's asking, are we 1,000%? Because she's told him at that point that the money is at Bank of America.
Okay?
On page 21, he says, this is February 4th, the day that 3 days after he expected the money, he tells her that the money isn't there. She provides additional excuses for that. And then on page 22, dated February 4th again, she's telling him that the 88 million and 297 million will possibly show up today.
Not she's telling him.
4.8 million when in the morning and 23.8 tomorrow. Again, another delay, and his response is shit.
All right, okay. Show me,
You want me to go through the rest of the documents?
hold on. Show me when there is gonna be $108 million to be deposited in the account on October the 12th,
It's right there on August 27th on the text that's being provided.
and $131 million to be deposited in November, and in December.
Yes, it's right there on the text.
And he doesn't know that this money ain't there?
No, he
He's-
believes this money is coming. What's significant about August 27th?
No, I didn't ask you. Do you seriously?
I can explain.
Hold on, sir.
Okay.
Are you seriously contending before this jury that he doesn't know that that $239 million is not there?
I'm telling
Yes
this
or no,
jury
sir?
that
Yes
Michael
or no?
Cochran does not know.
Yes or
because
no,
he
Your
believes
Honor?
that money is coming.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. It's a yes or no.
Well, he's trying to explain, and I think we should let the witness explain his answer. Go ahead, Mr. Hinzman.
Michael Cochran has been led to believe that all this money is coming to their accounts for government contracts, and it never comes.
And I presume that in September, October, November, and December, and January, he lives in the same household as Natalie Cochran, right?
He does, yes.
He certainly doesn't live on another planet. He can talk to Natalie Cochran about these contracts on a daily basis. He can talk to her, can he not?
Yeah, he does.
And he does. And he, on August 20, whenever, September, honey, where is that $8 million or $4 million? And she's lying to him, right? Is that your testimony?
And she says, we're getting hit with an audit. Can you believe it?
On September 5th, she's telling him, oh, no, that money is coming, right? On September 6th, 7th, 8th, 30th, October, he is somehow duped by it, and he's so blind to it that he will not ask his wife, where is $238 million? And he naively and blindly believes that this money is going to be there and it ain't there? Is that what you're testifying to, Detective?
Absolutely.
All right. Show me. There is nothing in these documents that talks about Michael's computer. Is there? Michael
not in these documents.
arranging for these contracts on his computer as he's sitting in the bedroom while Natalie is watching TV and the kid is between them. Those documents don't deal with any computer operations of Michael Cochran, right?
No, they do not.
Okay. Those documents did not deal with any personal contacts that Michael Cochran had with the investors, including his own mother. Correct?
These documents do not.
These do not. These documents do not deal with any checks that he wrote, as we saw in some of the exhibits here, on behalf of the companies. Correct?
Correct.
For either services rendered or for consulting services, etc., right? These
Correct.
documents don't show that. These documents don't, these documents do not address any issues that, well, the detectives are coming and, maybe they should talk to the kids. Is there anything about that anywhere?
No, that wouldn't be anything like that.
All right. These documents, of course, do not deal, again, in the same old story, with the lifestyle of the Cochrans, right?
These documents do not.
Honey, I'm taking you to Paris and I'm gonna get you a Louis Vuitton bag for God only knows how many thousands of dollars, because we have somebody else's money to live high on a hog, right? These documents don't deal with this, do they?
Not that depiction, no.
No, not that depiction. Well, they don't talk about any of the wealth that the Cochrans, plural, have acquired through the illegal schemes and enjoyed for a long time, right?
These documents do not.
These documents don't deal with anything about Michael Cochran's health. Honey, I feel bad today, I'm declining, or anything of that nature.
There are references to him being stressed because of the lack of money.
He is stressed because he doesn't know.
In these documents I'm referring to.
He's like in a National Enquirer. We want to know, right? He wants to know, right?
He wants to know where the money is that they've earned
wants to know.
through what he believed was legitimately awarded government contracts.
Right. And yet he goes to a boat sale and buys himself 2 boats at the same time, right?
I don't know if he went to a boat sale. I know that he did purchase ATVs, boats, vehicles,
Right.
things of that nature that both he and his wife picked out based on text messages we read, or by her encouragement to make purchases because she had led him to believe that they had all
Sure,
this
she let him
wealth.
believe it. And you truly believe it.
Absolutely.
All right. These documents do not show, these documents that deal with Natalie only, not Michael, whether he was copied on them. Do they?
So would you ask that again?
Now you look at any of these documents where Natalie is talking to Miss Petite or Chris Davis, where Mr. Cochran is not involved. Is there any indication that he is copied on those conversations?
Some of them, yes.
Yeah. So some of this he knows, right?
Some of it, but
Yeah.
not in this context that you're framing it.
Not in this context, of course. Okay. Now, when he talks on some of those messages, the jury will probably see that those conversations take place after Michael's death, right?
Yes.
So he cannot contract anything, Mr. Hinzman, because unfortunately he's passed away, right? Right?
Yes.
And Natalie Cochran is continuing the scheme that she was involved in, but it has nothing to do with what Michael knew and what he didn't know because he's dead. Right?
No, it supports the fact that it was her scheme because she continued it on.
It support. Well, one of those exhibits, Michael asked, no, 16. Michael asked directly to pull out $9,500. From where?
From their personal account,
To do what with it?
to have some cash on hand.
And that $9,500 came from where? They didn't have any income, independent income. That must have come from the investors, right?
That or rescue loans.
Well, is it possible that since they have no income, independent income, you testified that Natalie wasn't working as a pharmacist anymore, and Michael's job was an IT man, not really defined, that he's pulling $9,500 in cash that must have come from the investors, right?
Yes,
So he pulls $9,500 that he considers money earned, right?
from previous
If
contracts,
he,
yes. Yes,
if he believes that, if he's so scrupulously honest, well, he must believe that this is the money that they've already earned on those contracts, right?
right. He's not aware that they're illicit proceeds. He thinks they're legitimate proceeds.
Right.
Right.
What does $9,500 tell you as an investigator of money laundering?
Well, that,
Cash. I'm gonna ask $9,500 cash. What does that tell you? You're the expert here on money laundering.
sure. In this context, it means nothing. In the context that you're framing it, it references currency transaction reports. Those are a federal requirement under the Bank Secrecy Act.
Well, let me ask you
Where-
this. Let me ask you this. Every,
Yes.
well, I'll ask a very specific question. Under a-
The witness should be permitted to answer. Go
explain the
ahead, Mr.
$10,000.
The Bank Secrecy Act requires financial institutions to file what's called a currency transaction report for any transaction involving $10,000 of U.S. currency, that'd be cash or coin, in or out of a financial institution. It is a derivative of the Patriot Act and the War on Terrorism, so they want to track large amounts of cash. So if a withdrawal from a financial institution were to occur above $10,000, the bank would be required to complete a currency transaction report and document that transaction. In this case, however,
Well, I'm
the
sorry.
Cochrans
Now
had
let me-
cash
I'm
inside
sorry.
a
I'm
safe.
sorry, Your Honor.
Okay,
Now the question is this.
fair enough. He's answered the question. Go ahead, Mr. Victor.
$9,500 in cash is obviously under 10 grand, right?
It is.
And he withdraws that amount of money in cash, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that he does that for the purpose to avoid the $10,000 money reporting necessity?
No, I would not.
No?
That's not illegal. It's not an illegal act. It's when that is anything 10,000 or more is
Right.
taken out in multiple increments over a short period of time. That would then trigger what's called a suspicious activity report
Right.
with the bank that ties back into the currency transaction report.
And
So
that's
that
why-
that amount alone is not illegal.
And that's
or-
why he's taking $9,500 rather than 10,000, because he would have to report it to the IRS.
Your Honor, that's speculation. There's no way the
Well,
witness could read the
Sustained.
defendant.
All right. What about those income tax returns that the parties filed jointly?
Those were prepared by Natalie Cochran. They were false documents.
They were false documents.
Yes.
And he signed off on them.
There was no signature of Michael on the documents.
For 2017,
No, there was not.
2018,
No, there was not.
2019,
No, there was not.
and you're telling this court that she filed taxes and he didn't know anything about the income tax returns.
That's correct.
So he himself broke the law by not filing income tax.
If he had known what was being filed,
If he had known, he would have filed taxes.
no, if he had known what was being filed.
Okay. So he didn't have to sign the income tax return because his income was zero? Why didn't he have to file income tax return with Natalie?
I'm not saying he didn't have to,
Why didn't he sign those?
because they're done electronically now. You don't even have to sign them. One person could fill them out and file them electronically. He doesn't have to sign it. Now, the law requires that all tax preparers review their documents that they're filing, but
And he reviewed them, and he had absolutely no idea what Natalie was doing with the taxes, and with the bank losses, and with, well, the business losses, the business gains, et cetera, et cetera.
I have no idea if he reviewed them. If he had, he would further believe that he had made an extraordinary amount of money on government contracts.
Show me here any income tax return that lists about $4 million by the Cochrans. Can you do that? Can you show this jury?
No, I cannot. I don't have the discovery files and records with me to break out the tax returns that we did recover.
From your thorough investigation of this case, because you said that several times, was there ever an income tax return filed by the Cochrans that would list $239 million? Can you tell the jury that?
I know that there are tax documents that were given as ruses to get bank loans,
From your memory, Mr. Hinzman.
but I cannot say if that figure that Mr. Victor has given me matches those documents.
$239 million, would that raise some red flags if you ever saw an income tax return from a small West Virginia company filed with the Internal Revenue Service? Would that cause you to pause and consider that?
In what context?
Well, somebody's making $239 million from a business and files that income tax return. I would like to know the details of it.
Are you talking about the IRS would want to know the details, or?
Well, you were investigating their.
I've already answered that question. If I saw that, it's another prop. It's a ruse. It's not unsubstantiated by financial records, income records, state databases, federal databases. They would just, to me, if I saw that,
So you have
it would
no
be another
idea.
prop.
So you have no idea as you sit here today to tell this jury how much money Mr. and Mrs. Cochran were making and how much money they were reporting. True? As you sit here right now. Can you or can you not?
It's a very broad question.
Well, how much money did they make in 2018? Can you tell this jury whether they made millions or whether they made a couple of $1,000s here and there?
2018.
Yeah,
Are we talking about legal income or illegal income?
income tax return. You remember?
The income tax returns that we reviewed were submitted not to the IRS, because that would have got red flags, but to people that they wanted to borrow money for to demonstrate the value of the company.
So now you're telling us that Natalie didn't file income tax in 2018?
My recollection was that there had not been income taxes. No, let me correct that. The income tax documents that we recovered had been doctored to show greater income because they were used for other purposes. The actual income tax that was filed, which was presumably would have been legitimate, we did not review.
I see. Now, I don't think I have any more questions of this witness.
All right, redirect Mr. Truman.
Nothing from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
Very well. Mr. Huntsman, you may step down, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.